Welcome back from break. How's everyone? I know that I shouldn't be like sing-songing like that because that's so annoying. Guys, so I'm going to be sharing this. Oh, by the way, can I get input first of all about week 10 and how that's going? How's everything going? We have here Dev, and then Yusuf is going to join us soon. But did you want to share?
Yesterday the school's closed, so I didn't get to teach.
Come closer so that it can be recorded. Okay.
There was no class yesterday for
All
me, so I'm gonna have to do everything tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any other comments from folks about like what happened in class?
General comment. I think that I went through the slides, not all of them though, because Leslie had told me that Greg had started teaching them and thought that all the future work was a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So I just went through the stuff that was due closer in, like the ones that are due in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it worked out well for you, Kim?
Yeah, that was fine. And then they had about an hour and a half to work on their stuff themselves.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess me the same way. I think what happened at the time was that one of the inputs that I got from students were, I really need to see deadlines like ahead of time and so on, instead of it jumping in. And so that's one of the reasons why I thought it would be a good idea to put all those up front.
A lot of them don't realize or they forgot about the semester schedule. So if you remind them like at least once a week, look at the semester schedule.
Yeah.
So they're still sticking to it pretty religiously. We haven't really deviated. So most of them have just forgotten even that one exists. So
Right.
when you tell them that, they start asking.
Yeah. Okay. And Deb says that you haven't did.
I haven't.
Yeah. All right.
No, but I always, pretty much every class, at least go over the schedule. I ask them, how many weeks do you have left?
Right.
To get a wake-up call.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, and so we're preparing for prototyping, and so the deck of slides that I'm going to go over today are first of all about the prototype demo, and then second is going to be for week 12. And week 12 is talking a little bit more about cost estimation, and then about risk analyses and how in depth we have to go with that. So without further ado, let's see. I'm going to share my screen here. Right. So once I get all input from everyone on this deck of slides, I'll go ahead and post on our development site. So basically, it's our prototype demo for next week. As you know, E-Days is on Friday, so I would highly suggest for everyone to do it like that time. I know that some of my students, the test beds that we have provided was not enough for them. So what they have done is actually then opted to go to the creek or use their bathtubs, and recreate whatever simulation they need. I don't know if anybody else has a similar.
I told them they could do that as long as they let me know in advance, and they try to take a video recording with their cameras.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to show that they did it and show me the log of their results.
Right. So I agree. So with my students as well, I wanted a documentation of those tests if they're not going to be coming for or to use our test beds. Basically, that's the idea. So the ones that we provide. Okay, go ahead, Kim.
I have a question. Are we providing trash for them to test with?
Yes, we are. So basically, I'm going through the actual test beds right now. This should look somewhat familiar. Excuse me, that's not it. Well, maybe it is. Yeah, it does seem somewhat familiar, right? Well, we've talked about this previously. It's actually kind of letting them know the dimensions that is suggested for their prototype so it can fit the test beds. So we have two types of test beds. The one is collection at shoreline and the other is collection in water. And so as you can see, I'm not going to read through all of this, but we do have trash provided, microplastics of sorts, and the larger plastics. However, if they want to be very specific, like say caps, right? Bottle caps or something like that. I don't know how many of that we can provide. So anything that is specific to their design, I would highly recommend them actually bring. Right?
We're going to have bags of sorter plastic
Yes.
that will be pre-weighed because to determine efficiency, then they can say X weight of this and this and this, and they get whatever efficiency. But if they want something specific, they should bring it.
Yeah.
But we'll have.
Can we say that again? I can't hear Robin very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have different sets of bags of different size and types of plastic that they can pre-weigh and then put in so that they can make a determination of efficiency, collection efficiency of different types.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
But if they want something elaborate, and for this first round, I'm guessing they don't necessarily need elaborate,
Mhm.
but it will give them indication.
Where will this be?
So we are going to have it up front.
Up front, oh, okay. Question about that, do we have a water spigot up front? Because a couple of my teams need flowing water for theirs to work.
There's only the outside one I'm aware of is out here, but
Mhm.
is there another one?
No, that's the only one that I know of.
So the best is probably,
Longer hose.
Yeah.
Because there's a laundry hose that's been cut off. It's only about 4 or 5 feet long in that workshop that I saw.
We're not going to put anything in the workshop, right, Robin? Everything's going to be up front.
nothing wet stuff was going to be done. I mean, there'll be the voltmeters. We just pick up some more voltmeters to test their batteries and things like that.
They just need to simulate a current.
Yeah.
And they can do it because when I had some hydroelectric teams, we just use the sink downstairs. If they need something bigger than that, they should probably go to
They
create.
need a current along the surface of the water and push it towards it. So maybe if I can acquire a hose, we could use a spigot.
Yeah.
That'd be okay.
I mean, the only issue there is then you're going to
Overfill it.
overfill it. So it's probably better for flowing water type stuff is either that they have it there and then you just create a wave by pushing it,
Yeah.
Swirl.
or they use the creek or their bathtub or something like that.
Right.
Because otherwise, yeah, if we keep doing that, it'll just overtop.
Yeah. Okay.
And if we use these, there's not a great way of managing that weight distribution.
Oh, the walls.
Yeah, and then we'll lose the plastic and everything.
And they're going to demonstrate this during class time?
Yeah, so it is during class time that we recommend for them to
So realistically, you're not going to get more than a few trials per student.
Mm-mm.
With 25 people, it'll be like 2-3 minutes per student or so, right?
For student or, I guess,
Because students are
team was?
Well, per subsystem.
Per
subsystems. That's what I'm thinking.
But
Yeah.
not everybody needs
Needs
to
to
be in
test
the
it.
water
Yeah.
Or water.
to do it. So power subsystems would not need the water.
Right. We just have to do calculations.
Walls out there, they don't need water,
Yeah.
whatever.
What about the other test bed for the sandy shore?
So we just picked up sand, and so there'll be a hard-sided kiddie pool that the sand will be sitting in.
Oh, okay. So there's just be another. Okay.
And that is 4-inch in diameter. That's kind of like a different,
4 feet.
or excuse me, 4 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very tiny.
It's for dolls.
Yeah.
They have to make a very small prototype, like itty bitty.
So yeah, that'll be available, and then you can have plastic connect sticks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh well, we're
Work
gonna
on
catch
it.
it.
Oh,
We're going to go ahead and,
thanks for work on it.
well, it's as close as possible that we can kind of simulate. It's not as we thought it would be. But anyway, one person or one team of mine is actually using currents of the rivers, which is kind of different from currents of what they would see ocean, right? So. Well, let's move on a little bit towards this. I don't know. I mean, it says you have 15 minutes to set up and demo your work. Noting this is kind of like per team, I suppose. That's just so that everybody can manage their time well. I'm doing both demonstrations. Make sure they specify the size, range of plastic they're collecting, and document the results. We talked about this. At first, I thought there has to be like a methodology of sorts to actually show the separation. I don't know of how we would physically do that other than actually providing the plastics and putting it in the test beds and, you know, have them kind of sort through with whatever device they're trying to.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can do sorting that way depending on, depends on what kind of equipment they're using. What we would ask though is, you know, what that team puts in, they take out, so that
Right, okay.
each team has a clean test bed to work from. So that would be the only thing. That way people can use the size distribution that they need.
Right. Oh, so we are literally having them set up all the plastics and everything like that according to what they want to collect,
Yeah,
which makes sense.
I think the one thing that will be different is the microbeads, and I think that was going to be done. My
That I didn't
understanding
know.
was separately. That will be something separate that either has sesame seeds or chia seeds or
Oh,
something
true,
in it,
true.
so that they can try that out.
Does chia seed expand?
Good question. Why are you looking at me? Oh, well, I've only grown about 7 or 8 of those, but
That was the main question, but sesame seeds, do they float?
I was told they do. I
Okay.
haven't tried.
poppy seeds do.
Poppy seeds do. Okay. Can I just
This is Kim. Can you guys explain to me what we're doing with the microbeads again? I didn't hear that completely.
My understanding, and I haven't verified this, is that there would be a separate small water bin if there is somebody that's going to do microbeads that would have some or I should say an environmentally friendly pseudonym for them in there. And, you know, for the final, we'll figure out what that might look like, but that they might have something smaller like a Sterilite or Rubbermaid or something like that they could try it.
So that's up to
Okay.
Yeah, but we didn't really want to put all that into the pools.
do a soil or test bed.
Yeah.
Right. Just wait until you guys find out what I'm trying to figure out for like the final. I'm actually trying to, you know, use the swimming pool. Our swimming pool at mine, so we'll see. I think it'll work though.
You have to block off the filters.
Oh, this
I
is
used to
true.
do that.
Okay. Any other questions on the test beds? How's like the team development stuff going with your discussion in the classroom?
My team all really love each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have great teams this semester, like the best ever.
Like, they couldn't say enough good things about each other, how wonderful everybody was, and even if there was any problems, we're working it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a love fest. It
Yeah.
almost made me a little ill. I was kind
Yeah,
of like,
it was like
looking at
really,
the comments.
because
Like,
what I'm seeing up here is something a little different.
I have like about 1 to 2 individuals who are like weak links, but per
Mhm.
section, maybe 3 tops. And 2 of those people are dropping, so that takes care of that. So, but as far as like whole teams, they're mostly quite functional. I warned them though that really taxing stuff is coming. That'll really strain the team relationship when they get to these bigger deliverables that are coming up.
Yeah,
But they seem to be fine so far.
agreed.
Yeah, they're
It
very
wasn't like this
positive.
last semester at the same time though.
I
My
mean,
teams were definitely weaker last semester. Yeah, I was a weaker guy.
no, not at all. I think it's more as well that we actually took account. Robin slides? I don't know. Do you think that helped? Those are like the team building slides that we've been using in class. The DISC personality
Yeah.
test.
And also, who knows? Because we didn't take the pulse this time last semester. We didn't do it till the end. So
Yeah.
maybe they were hunky dory in the middle of the semester at first, and then they got terrible at the end. I don't know.
Oh, this is true.
I don't think so. I think my teams were actually not as functional last semester.
That's project
Yeah,
driven
totally.
too, do you think?
It could be, this time from the get-go though, I emphasized, you know, if you're not doing your work, I'm gonna find out. You're gonna be punished, basically.
My
job,
finger and yell.
Right,
Good job, Deb.
yeah.
You will be punished. Well, okay, so the reason why I'm asking is because we do have just one very simple deck of slides that we want for our students to kind of like to understand. I am actually going to try to show it to you here. I'm gonna have to stop sharing that one. I'm gonna share another screen.
I had my nose buried in it.
So Robin Steele has graciously put together an accountability ladder, and we discussed this earlier before this meeting, that this would be a good time to actually introduce or interject this. She also has a script there that you can read very carefully. And so, you know, I love how she uses Vincent as one of the persons there. I've never heard of a Vincent in any of my classes. I thought that was funny. Anyway, go ahead and use that example if you'd like, but this is basically kind of like a interjection of why is it important to work in the team, and the emphasis on accountability. Have you gotten any interesting comments back about our class or the team or anything like that? People in out there, Danny or Alina or Kim? Because I know that
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
I know when we sat down with our students, we actually took kind of a survey about how the overall course is going. Do you have any interesting comments that you like to share? I know I'm diverging a little bit.
I don't think they have enough data now to say something.
I see.
So I think at least before the break, they were very focusing on their projects, and I
Right.
didn't hear too much, except that, yeah, it's okay, but not too much information.
Right. So, how about you, Deb?
The overall course?
Yeah, the overall course. Did
The
you guys
main-
talk about that?
Yeah, the main comment I got back is, we want you to go over the rubric and the guidelines to know how we can exceed them. So
Right.
That's the main feedback so far.
Right. How about you, Yusuf?
Consistency across sections was one thing they mentioned. Not everyone. That was just the thing that came up the most, but it doesn't mean it was unanimous or consensus by any means.
Right.
It was just a plurality. So it came up a lot than anything else. And then a couple things about going over rubrics and how things are graded. Not as much in my sections, though. Mostly about section consistency.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. So as far as consistency goes, is it just because of the different due dates, do you think? Or the delivery overall? Or rigorous in grading? It's never really explained, is it? Because it, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think one thing we can do, this isn't really about grading or anything, but since we have the same exact classes on 2 sets of days, we should have 2 sets of the same schedule. The dates shifted, so they know the exact due date for everything. Especially for a program this large, that's something we can do. Like we'd be like next year, we'd have a Monday, Wednesday set of calendars and a
Yes.
Tuesday, Thursday set of calendars.
Yeah.
And it would be easy to do, just change all the dates. The first day, second day, thing would be the same.
Yes.
And that might alleviate some of that. Because they're kind of like, oh, it's the week of the 11th of April, but what day is that? Oh, project day 2. Let's see, that's Thursday, so the 12th. You know, so it's kind of
Yes.
takes out some of that confusion, I think.
Yeah. So just as a reminder, our scheduling next semester is going to be a little bit different, right?
I think it's gonna be
And
great.
so I think it's going to be awesome.
Every class will be the same length,
Yeah, for fall.
75 minutes per class, regardless of what class it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, so if you've done a little bit more of what that is looking like, can you kind of like share as a preview?
So I guess based on what Leslie told me, there's a push for us to like standardize and be like the rest of the university. And I guess the way we have it currently, where graphics is linked and scheduled at the same time as the project side of the class, because of that, it's like they're scheduling 3 slots that kills like 4 slots throughout the week or something crazy like that. I don't remember the numbers. So what we're going to do is, I think it hasn't been finalized by Leslie yet, but she's suggesting that we're probably going to have graphics listed as a separate schedule from the project side. And the project side will always be Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, 75 minutes apiece, whether it's the first day or the second day, rather than an hour and 50 and 50 minutes. And which is much better than what was originally pushed on us, which was to have like 2 sets of class lengths, which would have been a mess.
Nice.
So one class would have met 3 times a week for 50 minutes. Another class would have met twice a week for 75 minutes apiece, for a total of 150 either way. But that means we have to break up all our curriculum into 50-minute chunks and 25-minute chunks and then ram them together somehow.
Right.
So because we're able to consistently do 75 minutes across the board, every single activity we do, every single slide will always be designed for 75 minutes.
Yeah.
So that makes it easy.
And you helped figure that out. So thank you for that.
No, no worries. Anytime I see something on a spreadsheet, I'm like, oh, let me work on this. I like spreadsheets.
Our expert here. And streamlining our peer review and everything. So I like how you did that and added the comments, and we actually were able to actually share the comments with the students. So the students got real good feedback on that, is what I thought. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, is week 11, which is next week. That Friday, we have E-Days, right? So that basically then relieves us from actually doing any type of workshop. Instead, we are going to go into week 12. That is yet the following week. We are going to go into talking about the costs and materials, risk analysis, and a little bit preview of what the final report is going to be looking like. So in terms of the slides, it's exact same of what we had before, basically. Just pointing out, the fixed cost, variable cost, what we are looking for on those. We have an example of materials list with cost. I think this is a pretty good example. And I know we actually then, okay. So one concept that we'd like to emphasize is kind of the value proposition of what the design is about. And so cost is just one value consideration. But in the end, in the final report, they also need to talk. Okay. They also need to talk about, what else of the value that their final design will be bringing. And so one thing to think about this, and unfortunately we don't have like a common baseline that we've done before with the previous project, is think about like if the design doesn't perform as whatever there is commonly done out there, or does not add any value to whatever design is already out there, then why do your design? That's basically the logic to that. And so there has to be a paragraph or two that talks to the value considerations of their design. So this is just a primer. The very beginning is talking about cost, obviously. But other than that, you can as well have them look into safety of operation. That's one thing that they might have really delved into, and or ease of operation, sustainability, or like the type of energy that they're using to actually mobilize their device. Does anybody want to add anything to that, like value considerations? Unfortunately, Robin left, so
Yeah, she's good at cranking those out.
Yep.
Baseline and stuff.
yeah. I've yet to find a really good baseline to share with everyone. I don't know about you, Yosef.
The only thing that's really been implemented that I found was a 21-year-old kid who's
Yes.
done that thing.
Doing the V.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been a couple of inspirations based on that. But for the most part, people are basing it on other collection approaches, or like sifting sand and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
or like looking at a couple of products that are out there, but they're not really mass market yet.
Right.
Like the
And
I don't
that,
know what it's called, the C-bin. A couple
Yes,
teams were
the C-bins.
inspired by that, but most teams are kind of like, they don't really have too much of a baseline.
and I feel that the project is as wide possibilities that we can think about at this point that, they have to find their own type of quote unquote baseline.
Yeah,
So,
like, is it better than nothing? Right?
Yeah.
Or you gotta burn a ton of diesel fuel.
So what is that not wheelchair, what's that man on the wheel in Boston Harbor? Have you heard of that one?
There's one like that in St. Louis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the current powers these paddles, which then powers the conveyor.
Yeah, okay. I think
Somehow
that's
reverses direction through gearing,
Uh-huh.
and then it powers a conveyor that has paddles on it and takes the debris off and dumps it into a net.
Yeah.
Something like that, or some sort of receptacle or something.
How do they stay on the conveyor again?
It's all stuff on the surface,
I see.
like bags and crap.
Anyway, the best that we can do is kind of have them think about some type of baseline and then add the value to their design, whatever that might be. Okay, so this is more of cost, and then one thing that we added, which is kind of new, is about risk. So I am open to suggestions on this and why we should do this, or how we should do this rather. We know it's important because of course, we're introducing this new device into an open or natural environment, right? We're not going to be there for the real-time implementation. I think it's a valuable kind of analysis that we would point out to a client in terms of, okay, we're in a prototyping stage, but these are all the risks that is perceived, and this is pretty much the plan if this risk occurs. That's basically the idea there. So we're teaching yet another tool. We thought about including it in the subsystem stage just because, for those subsystems that are not testable, what are these guys doing, right? Some of them are doing calculations, if that, in-depth research, if that. Do you have any other things they're doing other than testing, or subsystems that are not testable?
Lots of research, lots of
Yeah.
So are we talking about discussing with them about risk assessment?
Well, yes. Sorry about that. Let me rein that in a little bit. We were initially wanting to actually have this discussion on risk for subsystems, but we thought it was just too much too soon. And so eventually we just kind of shifted all over to the final report stage. But we thought it was an important tool after all to introduce, and alleviating too much of what they have to do in subsystems, and we just put it off to doing it in the final report. So these are just elements that we'd like for them to consider and or write about. Obviously, the first thing is that you have to identify the risks, and E is the likelihood of the risk happening, and then I is actually the impact, right? And so the risk weight is defined as P times I, and that's kind of the norm, I would say, right? How you would define the weight of a risk. There is then a risk matrix that we introduce, and it looks like this. And for the likelihood and the impact, I only had 3 different categories on there. And so then they would map it, where exactly would they have that risk, be associated with. If it's a low risk, it can have a minor impact, and the likelihood of it happening is very likely, right? So that would still be considered a low risk. But immediately then after doing that, right, kind of putting them into all those different categories, all the different risks, put in all the different categories, then you start talking about what to do with it. Okay. So these are the 3 different examples that we kind of had them choose from. You can either accept it, you can either avoid the risk or mitigate it. Okay. And so we made definitions of what all those mean. accept, avoid, and mitigate.
Okay.
And then on the fourth point there, what is mainly what we're saying is that if you then accept or mitigate, right, then we'd also have to list a contingency plan should that risk happen. I guess that's kind of like where it's coming from.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So first question is whether or not this is too complicated.
Is there going to be an activity that we can do with them in class to reinforce it, or is it just the slides?
That's a good point. Should we make a how would we do that though? I don't
I don't know. There should be some application of it though. There should be definitely some activity. Otherwise, they're not going to really remember it.
Does anybody have any ideas?
I sort of introduced this earlier on before their project proposal. So I told them to think about, ways to make this safer for the marine life, for the users, and, as much as they can think about it. So I started this earlier on
Good.
with just ideas.
Good.
But, the risk assessment and the mitigation and so on, that's the different level.
Yeah. I think they're already thinking about it qualitatively, but we haven't. I guess I see Alina's point is they've already been thinking about it from a qualitative standpoint.
But not so much making it as an assessment of and or contingency.
Like they're supposed to write to it, but they're not. We haven't specified anything beyond that yet.
Right.
I don't know.
So is this going to be part of their write-up final report, having a risk assessment and mitigation plan?
I'm sorry, Kim, I missed that.
Are we, so in their final report, are we going to require them to have a section for risk assessment and mitigation?
Yes, and so this is the reason why we bring this up now. Is first of all, I think Leslie feels very strongly about having that included. Okay, and so it is one item that will be then evaluated in the final report. I guess that's kind of like the decision.
But I think that sounds good. I think that if you could actually, like Alina was suggesting, talk about, have the students start thinking about risks with their current projects sooner rather than later. But then another activity, if you're looking for a basic activity that you could do something like have a scenario where you've got an unsafe workplace. So I'm doing my electrical training right now. It's very straightforward, but it's like if your extension cord has a break in it, you can see the wires in it. You could have a couple different scenarios similar to that, like extension cord with a break in it, a hole in your electrical outlet, and then have them rank that on the risk matrix, and then talk about and use that to talk about what is the probability, and then what is the impact. So those types of things, because those are things that people can relate to.
Yes.
And then have them make a mitigation plan. So of course, like if your extension cord has a hole in it or a rip in it, then it's either probably throw it away, replace it type of thing. But they have to come up with those plans themselves.
Good idea, Kim. Thanks.
Yeah, most definitely.
And then maybe we can have them apply that as like a follow-up activity after that, is apply that to their own projects. Because they, like Alina was saying, and I agree, I think my class has been doing this too, they've been qualitatively thinking about things that could happen and what could impact stakeholders, right? So maybe they could go back and look at those old notes and start applying some sort of probabilities to them, and also some penalties or weights for how important they are. And then they could maybe apply this matrix to their own project, at least just in their design logs for now, until they convert it into something more formal later on, like an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
There I am pushing spreadsheets again.
You can do whatever you want with your students if that's what you think is going to be most
Report done in
beneficial.
Excel.
It's easier for me to grade. But thank you so much for that. Actually, I'm just taking notes right now, and so that we can actually then incorporate it better. So I'd like to take a little bit of time here, whatever's left, maybe 5 minutes or so, about how well has this DECA slides been in guiding our delivery, or should we reduce the slides? Should it just be watered down to just teaching notes? So can I get an input on that?
This is Kim. I like the slides, but what I do is I reduce the number of slides significantly when I do my presentations to class. And I try my best to reduce the words on them. So I go in and edit.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah, so what that means is like maybe there are too many words on the slides. That's one thing, right?
There's too many in my opinion, there's too many to present to the students. There's not too many for me to read as the instructor. So I'm walking that line right there.
Mm-hmm.
I usually, to speak to Kim's point, I usually keep the slides as they are, but I maybe go off the beaten path a little bit, and then I leave them so that way when I upload them, they have that for reference. But I definitely don't go through every detail of the slides.
Yeah.
I think the information's good.
Yeah, I
And
think
they,
info's
I
fine.
think, remember, this is all on Blackboard. Go look at it.
Mhm.
If you have to reference it later.
Yeah, because I feel like the same way. I mean, even having done the slides together with Leslie, I feel that a lot of times what I do is that I actually then have them reference it, but still have that first 10 or 15 minutes just talking, maybe lecturing, if you will, and not very much dependent on the slides. And I think that's been working well. So let's just consider this, and I think I mentioned this as well. In the Yammer note from Greg is that these are teaching notes for us, and just to kind of like make sure everything's consistent. I know, Yusuf, you have to leave, so thank you so much for your input.
Thank you so much for hosting us.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Yusuf. But we'll continue to make this better, and if it helps for instructors to actually just have it like what Kim was saying, as more of a way for teachers' notes. Maybe we can look into a format of doing that instead of actually throwing slides to you, I don't know. That's just a thought. Any other input on that? Okay. So just a reminder then, that Friday, I believe subsystems report is due. That Friday, meaning week 12. So what date are we then? I think we're talking about April 8th or so. Yes. So April 8th, the subsystem report, the individual subsystem report is due, as well as the project plan update. And I don't know how everyone's doing their design logs. I know that some of you are doing checks. Some of are actually doing, like the grading all at once. It's really up to you, but just so you know, the TAs will be available towards the end of the semester to kind of like finalize that grading for you. And I'm talking about the design log. That's the portion that we get. I think it's 5% or so. Then we have, of course, the following week, which is week 13. That packet that was sent to students for the hand sketches, that is also due that day on the graphics day. And therefore, there's no SolidWorks that week. So that's about it, folks. Anything else did you like to discuss in the between, or?
So I have a question. So I'm going to skip to the end of class when things are due. So week 14, 15, and 16.
Yes.
In the syllabus, week 14, works like prototype testing is due then, and then final report is due week 15, and then trade show presentation is due 16. Are we pretty set in those due dates, or are we going to change them? Are we going to bump things back a little bit? Because I know last semester, all three of those things were due on the week 16.
Yes, that's a really good point. I mean, at this point, I feel strongly about having them done that way, but I mean, I can be strong-armed either way. What are thoughts from folks on that?
So last semester I did week 15, the works like prototype testing, and then the final report and the trade show presentation were due on week 16. But so my concern here is that my kids are not going to have enough time to finish their prototypes. Like there's not that much time for them to be doing prototyping.
Yes. You mean in the integration, right? That's like due week 14.
Right, but even now, so I was a little bit behind at the beginning, and they hit spring break, barely anything got done. So on Monday of this week, they started prototyping. That's when they started doing their subsystems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see your point. I think it's worth like raising to Leslie to see if that would be something that we can consider moving back, like what you were saying, Kim.
I mean, I'm not saying that we should all move it back. I don't want people to do things that are not. I'm just wondering if anybody else is considering moving it back. But it looks like Myrna, you're going to keep it the way it is,
well,
as written in the syllabus.
Yeah, the reason why I say that is that we have to be kind of unanimous on this, because if we were to kind of like create the test beds for our final working prototype, then it would be where, everybody has to do it in the same week. Like say if we are going to use the facilities up in the rec center and use the swimming pool, if you will, then first of all, I don't even know if that's beneficial, right? If that adds anything to what they're trying to do. But if we go that route, then we want to make sure that everybody's kind of doing it on the same week, because we have to reserve for the same week and everything like that. So this is something that does have to be unanimous, I think. But I think you raise a really, really good point. And I know that, because of snow days and everything like that, some of us are just kind of on that balancing act of, okay, where are these kids at this point? And how focused are they with work?
And definitely they are not all on the same page.
Yes.
Because of there's snow days. There's snow day before the break. There is yesterday. So
Yeah.
It really depends.
Right.
So like whoever had class on Monday, probably they started building. I did not see them this week. I'll see them tomorrow. So they will start probably this weekend. So that's,
Mine, yeah. Or a couple of mine.
I have no idea how it's going to go. But Kim, I think the point is like we have to wait and see how it goes and decide probably later. But again, I will not be really bound to these dates because I don't know how it's going.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, Alina and Kim, I think, it's worth looking into and making pretty much a unanimous decision, like I say, because students hate it when one section does this and the other section, does that, even when it comes to something like this. So, of course, then I think this is really important to mention and talk about. So, is everybody going to be there for tomorrow as far as the E1 faculty meeting at noon?
Yeah.
I will not be there. I have class.
That's true. Sorry, Alina. Kim,
I have class from 12 to 2, so I cannot make it.
Right. Kim, are you going to be there?
I'll be there,
Okay.
hopefully. I mean, I'm planning on being online, calling in.
Yes, at least online. Well, the
Is
reason
this going to be recorded somehow or?
yes, most definitely we'll try to have it recorded. Well, actually, I'm
Okay, good. Thank you.
Rooney here. I don't know. I'll ask her. But the reason why I'm asking is because maybe tomorrow would be another good time to actually talk about this, so far as our scheduling and consistency and making sure that everybody's on the same page, at least across sections. As
Okay.
dates on 14, 15, and 16, right?
Yeah. If I was going to put in my vote, I would put prototype testing on the 15th, and then on the 16th week, I would do the trade show and the final report.
Got it. And as well as, and I there's the other thing that I kind of want to mention on the side, maybe on the 15th, I know for sure that they're going to have the SolidWorks exam I know it's unfair to kind of say, you know, well, all their attention is going to be one way or the other. But in reality, that's kind of like what's going to happen. So maybe that's why it was spread out a little bit because of all the other different things that are going on in their lives.
Oh, gotcha.
So
That
week
makes sense.
15 is SolidWorks exam. That's I know for sure. So this is really, really good information, and I think that, you know, Leslie needs to make these decisions soon. And so if for whatever reason I forget to mention, can one of us kind of like say, hey, you know, let's think about this more deeply and make a decision?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, it's about
Sounds good.
time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and you know, continue the discussion offline if you have any other concerns on this. Okay.
Okay.
Super. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye.